Good, let's start and see how it goes. Well, my name is Alex Tursky, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Post-Patents Foundation. It's a non-for-profit which was designed to help to develop data spaces in general, but with an accent. We are concentrated not on technical part of data space, but on organizational innovation, and you'll see my reason for that later on. So we are very special. Anyway, today I'm going to tell a story which might become quite important story for IDSA in general, or might not, it depends on many things. And it's about marriage or cooperation between Solid project and IDSA. Most of you know IDSA, and probably some of you know Solid project. And those who know Solid project, you definitely thought, well, are they competitors? Do they do something different? And what's the difference between them? And there is difference, but we believe that from today we will do best effort to make them cooperate. And this cooperation is not about just aligning protocols or whatever. It's about bringing to the new level. So we expect synergy when 1 + 1 is 3. So we will explore these synergies, and hopefully it will drive the whole community forward. But before we go to some details, let's ask ourselves the most important question: why? And when we asked these questions, we understood that it's important to talk to real industries and ask them to present the business cases. So in this presentation, you will hear several business cases which will give you the feeling what we want to achieve. And the first business case is from real estate. Leon.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm from Lincoln. I will explain Lincoln a little bit more in detail later. But what we encountered in the real estate market,
It goes.
It goes. When customers are in search of a house, they encounter many different service providers they have to deal with. And the thing is, and most people who have bought a house once in their life or maybe more will recognize this, you have to cooperate with all of them separately. So from their point of view, it's always a vertical customer journey. Whereas as a customer, my journey is horizontal. And I go like this. And not even in a straight order, that can also jump ahead and back and forth and so on. But every one of them enforces me their systems. And I don't know how many apps you have on your phone. That's called a My App, or you have it on your browser, a My Portal.
Too many.
Yeah, too many. But there's actually none of them is really a My Portal. It's a their portal. It's their portal with data about you, which you can hardly control yourself. You can view, sometimes you can download, but mostly they're not the data but the PDF. Sometimes you can upload, but all the times it is on a one-on-one relationship, and they enforce the tool, the process, and the data. You have hardly any say about it. Not only as a consumer that is very annoying, but as a service provider it's very cost inefficient. Because you don't make any use of the data that another service provider has given to the consumer, and the user can reuse it. I mean, use of data is quite common. Reuse of data is not so common. So we, as Linker, said we're going to solve this problem. And we envision ourselves a customer journey where the customer is really at ease when buying a house. And she would actually get a signal from their digital assistant saying, hey, look, I've looked at your family life for the last year, I've analyzed it, and when you move to another city, your husband can save 1.5 hours a day commuting. There's a job opening for you at a company opening a new branch with a 15% higher salary than you currently have, and I already looked at some houses. One of them really fits your needs, and it has a facility to school for your children, even a park, so you can get that dog the children want. And I already looked at the bank for a decent, favorable mortgage offer, taking into consideration your current salary and your new salary. And I already made an appointment. You want me to confirm that appointment at the real estate agent? Just say it. That's where we want to go. And now you think, okay, that is all about AI. No, it's all about data. Because data is the fuel for AI. But data is currently also already, without AI even, the fuel for all these service providers to cooperate with you. And that is what Linker does, and the name says it all. We link the consumer to all these service providers and make information exchange possible. That is our goal. We call that info mediation. And we have established this platform. And by doing so, we were faced with several challenges, and we are not there yet. But, let's see, yeah. Okay, we needed somewhere to store the data, but it should actually not be inside the platform. It should be separated from the platform. So you can also, as a consumer, take it away. You don't need Linker anymore, you go to another. That should be possible. So we found Solid, because Solid enables that, but also Solid has that consent. Before sharing, you know what you share, without having two service providers share it about you. No, you're involved, because it's your personal data space. But then we ran into the problem that Solid has no real security. But we actually also didn't want security in that Solid pod. We wanted to have it separately. So we introduced and implemented a digital identity at the AIDAS high level. Separated. Strong partner we found in Digidentity, who enables that multi-country. Okay, then you still do not bridge the gap between the consumer and many service providers. You can also do it in a one-on-one. That is where Linker Core comes about. The platform we created enables the one-on-n, but also the n-on-n relationships that we need. But now we are still faced with a last challenge. And in that last challenge, it's again about data. That consumer does not always have the data at his own disposal, data about you, data from you. Sometimes the data is from a government system, sometimes the data is from an industry system, sometimes it's from a municipality. And all those systems need to be connected to that person. And from Linker now, we are doing that for notaries. We look at the notary branch and we create something. But I have to do it again when I go to the real estate, the realtors market. Then I go to the advisory market. Or see what the challenge is? We constantly have to create new connections. And I'm actually in search in a way that Solid and IDS together could help the consumer, still being in the center, and enable them to cross silo, go through a customer journey as the consumer perceives it, horizontally, and not having X amount of vertical customer journeys and vertical data silos. And that is still our challenge, and that's what I call upon, and that's why I also was very fond of the invitation of Alex to speak about the business case here. Because it's not just a problem from the Netherlands or for Linker in itself, no, it's a bigger problem. And the real estate market in Europe alone is a €2 trillion market. Talk about big money. And talk about a whole lot of annoyance, millions of consumers who have to go through this process over and over again. So I hope you can all help me, help yourself in solving these problems, in getting more data to the consumer at his or her disposal, so that he or she can really reuse, recycle data. We spoke earlier, and I said it was quite funny. We all talk about recycling, but as long as it's tangible and you can have it in your hand, everybody understands what recycling is. But if it is digital and it's about data, people start to lose. But it's actually quite the same. We should reuse, recycle data. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon.
I will stay here, so yeah?
Yeah, may I ask a question?
Yeah. I don't know.
But very brief, please.
Yeah. The question is brief, the answer could be...
We'll see.
Now, what's refraining you now from interconnecting to a huge number of service providers and organizations?
Time and money.
From who?
at first from us,
Yeah.
because we have to do it all over again, every time again.
Mhm.
I mean,
And you never
the
know
note-
where is the right data because it's duplicated. It's data silos also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Data silos is a big issue, especially in this market
Yeah.
when the digits behind every deal is 6 digits.
Mhm.
You don't want to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And this market is much bigger than famous automotive market.
Mhm.
So what we get from this case that we really need to look at the market which is bigger than anything else. And in this market, it's not only big corporations like banks or insurance, whatever. It's also a lot of people. People buy, people sell, maculars, notaries, etc. So we have to include this personal people stuff. Also, security extremely important, and also precise data. So no data silos. And also interesting case about AI, that actually in order to develop AI, we don't need to develop AI, we need to provide fresh data and establish situation when they compete with each other, then they will do the rest. So data is more important for development of AI than anything else. But now we see that neither Solid nor IDS cannot address these kind of challenges. And first question is, why do we have these two projects at all? Because one project is about connecting pods, another project more or less about connecting platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, I will simplify today a lot. Please don't keep me for some small technical inaccuracies. But why is that? And actually, we thought a lot about it, and then we realized it's about nuclear physics. And 100 years ago, people thought, okay, can we split the nuclear into two parts? Some of them said, no, it's not possible, let's just burn the coal. And other people say, yeah, it's possible. And you know what the right answer. Now we have very similar question about data. Can we split platforms into our data and kind of post-platforms, platforms without data? That's a very interesting question. IDS more or less replied no to this question. Because, well, they do want to connect platforms, but essentially they want to connect data, but because they cannot disconnect data, they connect platforms. Okay, no. These guys replied no as well. Because Tim Berners-Lee, his idea was to somehow take data from Facebook, then he probably called Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg said, no, I'm not going to give it away. And then Tim Berners-Lee said, okay, if they don't give away data, I do it myself with my pod, so platforms are not important. So the point is that both projects, in a way, implicitly replied no to this big nuclear question. Now imagine we reply yes. Then we don't have to connect separately platforms and pods. We connect pods with platforms, but these platforms are dataless. And that's a good idea because in a way it represents data, it represents algorithms. It's nicer to connect data with algorithms than algorithms with algorithms. For example, if you look at the website and web browser, you never connect web browser to web browser. You connect to the web server. So this is a good idea, but the question is, can we really make this nuclear reaction? And we found that it's not a technical question at all. It's a purely business development question. Can we create such a rollout scenarios where with a win-win situation for all participants, we make it happen? Engineers cannot do it. So engineers rely on us and business developers, and we are just sitting silent. So now we business developers come and say, you know guys, we can do it. We have very clear scenarios how to do it, but when we do it, we need support from engineering community to support it with certain protocol systems, etc. So it's about dancing of engineers and businessmen doing the same thing. So it's a very complicated combination of technical and organizational innovation when it may start flying. But if it flies, it needs a name, and we said, okay, what if we give it Web3 data space? Web3 comes from here, definitely. Data space comes from here. Nice start. What could be the reasons why we do it? First of all, we definitely have to address this personal stuff, but also in a way, we may help IDSA itself to go to the next level because we include this personal stuff and other stuff, and well, anyway, we read this website. It says it's about it. Next slide. Good. Now, speaking about other business cases, next one, I thought it could be interesting to hear agriculture. I love agriculture, and Anil agreed to give his story. We'll try to do it very simple, like just to get the feeling what agriculture is facing now.
Hello, I think the first thing is that very funny that I'm representing this industry because I'm not a farmer per se or have no connections with agriculture at all.
I will help. I had once 10,000 cows, so we'll
However, I'm representing IDSA in 3 projects that are from the agriculture or agri-food domain, and so hearing a lot about those problems that there are. So some of the business cases that were identified is that like as a farmer or as a owner of an agriculture or rural organization, I want to really get access to the market trends or share my existing data that I collect from the sensors or IoT devices so that I can really get some predictions about what to sell, what to grow in my fields, and what kind of geospatial data I can provide to get some predictions about the future so that I can optimize my business basically and make money out of it. And so the current existing problems that maybe I can just state a few of them. So in all the projects, there's the same pattern that I recognize. It's like people are like speaking from an ivory tower, and like they are like talking with each other, like all the smart people, which is nice, perfect. But these guys who are like in the farm, like or owning a farm or something, nobody really helps them to integrate into this data sharing, like explaining the business advantages of it, and provides them the technical tools to share data and receive the benefits out of it. That would be the thing that I could explain. It's really, again, very interesting that I'm representing agriculture here. So tomorrow I will join the farmer protestations.
Thank you. Well, and it's indeed, agriculture, there are around 500 million small enterprises, and not unlike BMW, they don't have CTO. And these guys are extremely depressed with all the systems, and government just keeps pushing them, okay, we have to follow this green or CO2 regulations, so fill in more and more systems. And it's quite difficult, but also they challenge the issue of Internet of Things. They have tractors, they have sensors in the field, they have actuators to turn on off water, they have all the satellite imagery on top of that. So it's a lot of technology around, and this technology has its own data around it. So we come to Internet of Things. That's what comes. So actually, on top of personal issues, I mean personal, let's say, involvement of people, we have involvement of machines. So the actual demand for such Web3 data space is not only organizations, but people and Internet of Things. And speaking about Internet of Things, there's a picture I tried to depict. At the moment, Internet is like, we have a real world here, and all our systems are somehow aside. We have different silos, we have different computers, we are sitting in them and doing, but it's two different worlds. So we can invent here different rules, etc. But imagine a different world where we have real world, we have some kind of these pods, whatever we call them, which belong to every device, and then we people use our information systems to look at the real world. It's kind of look at avatar. So we are dealing with real world, and this table has a price tag about it. This house has a cadastral information about it. So imagine take any platform and you look to the real world and you see all this information about it, and you can read it, you can write it, you can change it. If you change it about this building, then somebody else will read this information. So it's kind of big Google document where everybody reads and writes, and you have data at origin. That changes the essence of Internet. So Internet is not anymore a media to transfer data securely, it's a media to access real life. And real life comes with real responsibilities, like reputation, for example, or intellectual property rights. We have property rights in real world. Do we have it in digital? No. It will take you ages to prove that this photograph belongs to you. So that's probably a new essence of Internet. Internet is a kind of extension of the real world, not a media to transfer data. Forget about that. Well, still you may have a question at the technical level that IDS, how far is it from Solid? And I tried to play with this famous schema, for ages. And I said, well, could we just play a little bit and see how far is it from Solid? Okay, let's do some kind of gymnastics around it. First of all, data owner. We know that it's definitely organization in the classical, but probably it's also, oh, come on, a person and, for example, a car or engine of the car or pump of the engine, etc., etc. So it's on the left side. Good. Then on the right side, we have a person who is sitting in front of computer. Good. And these are two very interesting blocks. In general IDSA schema, forgive me if I do it wrong, it could be more or less anything. So okay, if it's anything, we would like to put here on data provider our data port from Team Berners-Lee. And by the way, speaking about, when I talk about Solid, I'm not talking about Solid protocol as it is now. I'm talking more about idea of Solid. So don't get me wrong, because Solid has a lot of issues which, I don't want even to dive. But the whole idea of data, which is here, is important, because then we have situations that we not only authorize it, come on, but we have total control. It's much stricter link between a person and the port, because I really control this single source of truth. If I go to the right side, here it also could be any platform. Okay, let's be platform. But then it will be dataless platform. See, so we move data here, we have platforms here, good. Still idea scheme. Now let's dance around it. Service provider. Well, actually, we think that any platform is a service provider, so probably we can move this here, make it yellow. Okay, removed. Then, if you think about this app store, it's a very good thing. It will provide pod software here, dataless platform software here, very fine. But then, what about protocol? Well, usually it's written from left to right. It should be also from right to left, because this guy also wants to edit data. And by the way, it could be IDS protocol, Solid protocol. Actually, we don't care as long as it has control of the authorization, and I know your new version took it. As long as it has some awareness mechanism, as long as it has some linked data capacity inside, more or less IDS Solid, whatever it could be. Then comes the question of the clearinghouse. My understanding, please forgive me if I've got it wrong, but the raison d'etre for it is because we don't trust different platforms. We have to have something between which we trust. But imagine we first establish trust between people here, machines. With organizations, I didn't put the key on the purpose. I know it's provoking, but I think organizations don't need keys. But with keys come schema or PKI. As long as we establish trust from here to here, we can get rid of clearinghouse, because in a way, any transaction there done by this platform on this port will be recorded in the log on this port, and every record will be cryptographically signed by this guy. Probably we can rely on the secure log here. Probably we may not need clearinghouse. It became simpler. Then broker service provider. Problem here is that it experienced the issue of monopoly. Any monopoly is problem. Imagine we switch it to something like DNS. I mean, register, we say, okay, every port, when I'm here, it's my ID, IP, nothing else. No meta information at all. Meta information could be collected by commercial search engines, which are competing with each other. That's what we need, to get rid of monopoly, to make sure these guys will do their best to answer Facebook, give me the IDs of all people out of trillions of other ports. It's not easy to find it. Let them do the job. So, getting rid of monopolization is important. Okay, interesting. Of course, we leave vocabulary. It's very good. Well, if you look at the schema, more or less, that's Web3 data space. It's not many changes we had here, but it was IDS approach. What if you look from the point of view of web technology? Well, that's web technologies we know from Web 1, web server, web browser. Then we got the Web 2, a platform, no web server, we manually uploaded here. But then imagine we have something like Web 3, where we actually get the idea of web. Now we call it pod for whatever reason, more or less the same, and we use the idea of the platform. And it's kind of HTTP plus protocol here, Solid IDS, kind of. The difference is we do not allow this database, because we know better place to keep data. And the question is, how else can I call it not by Web 3? It's just natural. I know that Web 3 is taken by blockchain guys, but hopefully they have just several years left and then they will be out. So it's out. It's my dream. I can talk about blockchain for ages. I love it. So, but more or less, it's exactly the same schema which I just showed from IDS side. So point is, it's more or less the same. As long as we answer yes to the question, can we separate data from platforms, we more or less come to the same idea. And well, type of protocol we can discuss. Well, it was about some technical dive, and now again let's go to the business cases around it.
Can
Please.
I just ask a question? Or make a question and a remark, or more a remark? You talk bots, you talk personal lockers, you know, it really should not be a particular protocol, it's just your personal environment where you keep data about yourself.
We are not talking about specific protocols, and I'm
But
really.
you have to be careful to use the term data owner, I said that before, because legally you're not even the owner of your own data legally, but you control the reuse of it. So I totally agree with the basic setup, and the technology exists to do all of this, what you said, except the very fact that you disturb a $2 trillion market, or even in scientific publishing a $30 billion market, and everybody makes tons of money by the inefficiency of this current system, and they sit on your data in their private platforms, you'll get a world war against you if you try to implement this. Have you ever?
That's why we start here.
Yeah. Cultural heritage.
Yeah.
There is a
Cultural
cultural
heritage.
heritage of these guys as well, you know, they don't want to get rid of it.
Well,
It's easier. That's easier.
let Pavel talk a little bit about cultural heritage. Probably it will be partially answer to your question, but we definitely can continue afterwards. Pavel, please.
So yeah, quickly, my name is Pavel. Let me quickly take you to a very different world, from manufacturing and transportation to museums, culture, libraries, cultural heritage, historical heritage. Sorry. What is our big challenge there? The big challenge of this domain is participation and inclusivity. We can consume culture, cultural content, cultural experience today. We can go to museum, we can visit an exhibition, but the actual heritage is not within museums, within their walls. It's there, out in the streets, in the cities. That's where history happened and heritage. So, and we are the owners of that. We live there. We own this. We want to do our own things. We want to combine our own experience. We want to do our own guided tours. We want to do aids for our children in schools. We want to combine it with what is stored in museums and in archives. But we want to own this, and we want to be a part of the game in full rights. I'm running Jewish Heritage Network project. We had 17,000 synagogues in Europe before the World War and 3,000 after the World War. We want to document those who were destroyed and demolished. How we can do that other than getting out to the street, talking to people, getting their testimonials of those who live, etc., etc. This is our own heritage. So this is the main question: how we open the walls of the museums and how we make everyone, every citizen, every community a participant in the game. Now let's talk about what's happening now with the museums. Every museum, every archive lives in the mindset of a fortress. They safeguard our heritage. Think about the language we are using to talk about those institutions. They safeguard their treasures, safeguard our treasure. There are a lot of barriers. You can't easily access content in the museum. When there is a project or something that the museum wants to do to develop, to engage public, how do they usually do it? They take the asset, they take the collection, they copy it, they do something on the side, an app, a website, an XR app, and then after a couple of years, when the money ends, this disappears. When people out in the street, communities, citizens want to do something, they develop an app, everything is fine, the money ends, this disappears. The sustainability, I mean the project sustainability of our project in the field of culture is very, very, very low. Think about the amazing project Europeana. The headquarters are just 2 blocks from here. My good friends, I used to work there. This is an effort of Europe of 10 years old to collect all our heritage in one platform. How does it work? It's a massive copying machine from thousands of European museums, archives, etc., to intermediaries and to the central platform. Of course, this data is by design, by outdated, and the process of updating it with the source is painful, long, expensive, and unsustainable at the end of the day. Currently, Europeana is in the transition to a data space for cultural heritage, and we are advocating very strongly there to use a new approach. So what kind of alternative can we see? Think about data, as Alex says, being out there in the wild, in secure vaults, controlled by museums. By the way, to your comment, museums are not owners of this data, right? They are delegates of the society. It's our data by definition, it's not even their data. So it's controlled by museum, but accessible and visible to everyone, both museum professionals and the public. Every change made to the data, every addition, every comment, every annotation, every extension is visible to everyone, subject to IPR restrictions, for example, that are controlled by the museum. IPR is a very important aspect. We are not ignoring it. It is managed by the museum, controlled by the museum, but still, it doesn't hinder visibility of the data. For example, what other concerns are there? Long-term preservation. As long as we extend the domain of data out to the street and we start collecting data, stories, recollection from the people, we also need to provide long-term preservation. Now think about this. Basically, we radically extend the context of heritage. Everything which is said, well, subject to some criteria, of course, but which is said, written, commented, in the digital sphere out there, this is our heritage. So as long as this heritage resides on the pods, and these pods by design have long-term preservation capacity, then we can also roll back in time to our heritage to a specific point in time. This is basically a time machine of the society. What will become of Europeana in this new world? Europeana will continue to exist in the same way. It will provide a portal into the best European heritage. It just will not own this. It will not have its own repository. It will just access, as Alex says, through search engine, all the heritage it wants in whatever manner it wants. So the European Commission will have its most beautiful portal into European culture. Basically, this is the story. Just one last piece of information. We are running in Europeana this year an innovation group, which I'm leading, and whose task is to create a repository of use cases, or business cases, as Alex is calling them, for heritage. We're designing a methodology involving community. It's a collaborative work, so if we are very interested in analogous work in other domains to work together on methodology of collecting use
We
cases.
definitely will do it together with IDSA, because we discussed here the same with Anil.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed. News today is heritage tomorrow. And imagine 100 years from now, you're sitting in front of a computer, you're a student, history student, you want to look at the world 70 years ago. So you really need some kind of time machine. Dive into the world how it was 70 years ago, read the news 70 years ago, everything which happened. That's the business case. So long-term preservation is very important here. And by the way, speaking about long-term preservation, we applied together with Pavel and 32 other partners, including, by the way, IDSA, thanks to Sebastian. We applied for the big grant, 110 million euro. First part is 25 million euro. It's called European Collaborative Cloud for Cultural Heritage. We applied in September. And in December, we learned that out of 9 the organizations which consortiums applied, only 2 left. We and French means Academy of Science. We got exactly the same score. And actually today, most probably today, we decided in Brussels who will get it. Very emotional. But anyway, experts of European Commission appreciated this Web3 data space already, so we have this, quality mark. We reached the end. And by the way, one of the questions, part of your question which you asked was, whether big platforms will like it. We may have enemies. We decided, when we prepared for this grant, we decided to check it. In cultural heritage, there are big platforms. When museum upload data, there are big platforms called Axial, Ex Libris, etc. So we just knocked to their door, there in Utrecht, Axial, and said, guys, we would like you to give away all your data. So what? And then, well, it was a difficult discussion. But then we suggested them to answer just simple question. As a Rijksmuseum here in Netherlands, it has a time span 500 years. So I asked, dear Axial platform, how do you answer this question? How am I, as a Rijksmuseum, is going to keep my data when I uploaded 50 million items to your great system? Because your great system probably will survive for maximum 50 years. It's private enterprise. As I said, that I don't know. Then I explained how we are going to do it, something like that. I said, look, there is museum. Imagine museum uses 3 platforms for storytelling, 3D models, actually Excel collections management. And imagine the museum has such a pod. So 3 people here upload the data to the system, and it all saved here on the pod, some on Amazon service. So when in this schema, if Axial is gone 50 years from now, it will be just another system which will substitute it. And then the question, what will happen if Amazon is gone? Well, then probably we need to synchronize it with a couple other competitors of Amazon. So when Amazon is out, this revolver will just rotate. So this is a schema to store data of museum for 500 years. As simple as that. We discussed with King's Library of Netherlands, said, yeah, good idea, if you can build it. But it was enough to show this schema to this Axial company and said, yeah, we are with you. Okay, the largest platform decided to join the club. Then I called to Ex Libris and said, yeah, if you can do it, we are with you. So point is that 3 major platforms in cultural heritage immediately jump into this consortium when they realize that there are some other benefits they can. get. So that's the point. It's not technical innovation. We need to find win-win solutions with all these players, and then these players turn from our enemies to our supporters. But of course, if you talk about long-term preservation, we may need to talk about persistent ideas. Otherwise, after 500 years, you will find nothing. Because on every pod, there is some painting. It should have some kind of idea which is irrelevant to platform. There is no google.com inside, because we don't know how to Google. We are talking about ideas which are persistent, stays forever. And if we have great security with all these PKIs we discussed above, persistent ideas. Oh yeah, it's good. I forgot about the slide. It's a good example. I visited the website of Web3 and I checked the articles of Tim Berners-Lee written and published 25 years ago. They all are gone. If you talk, we may talk about intellectual property rights. Imagine I'm a photographer, I made a photograph, and of course I can get the timestamp. And then just, if somebody claims it's my photograph, it's very easy, you just complete timestamps. With all key management infrastructure established, timestamp service, it becomes piece of cake. So we actually can go to very extreme cases like real intellectual property rights, so that every platform can establish it. Just example how easily we can do if we really put a solid foundation of good cryptography as a foundation.
I just want to say one last one phrase about culture. But as to your question, yes, the reason to go to culture is because there are no Facebooks there, but also there is a, think about this, the true democratization of internet will be led by culture, not by high-tech fields, not by transportation, not by AI technology. It will be led by European museums and libraries. That's an amazing story that Europe will like.
Quite challenging, but yeah, but it could be really interesting.
Well, I indeed think there's much less to lose there. We have tried it exactly this in health, with personal health environments. First of all, when we did a proposal years ago, NWO said, oh, not many citizens will be able to decide on their own data, because don't forget, it looks very nice, but if I have to give 20 different platforms access to my data, I don't want them all to have access to all my data. And it's a lot of personal management to decide what Facebook should not see anything, and nobody's on Facebook anymore. But
We have a very simple answer on this question.
I think that's one thing we can discuss, because that's not an unsurmountable hurdle. But we have seen, I won't mention names, but some of the electronic health providers, the electronic health records, they would go to any length to stop you. Because they make a fortune by the system
That's why we start from cultural heritage, we start from transportation. When these guys see themselves surrounded by projects like that, they have no choice. We're definitely not going to go to Mr. Zuckerberg right now.
No.
We start from the long tail, and then we come to them eventually. By the way, our previous project, before we had a project, we made a platform ourselves in cultural
You should
heritage.
not call it Ghost Platform anymore, you should call it Robin Hood. Still
Okay.
from the rich giving to the
But
poor.
I really would like to pay attention to this power of synergy. Solid has their goals. Definitely IDS has even further goals. But my feeling is that if we really answer this question about disconnecting data from platform, and we make kind of new project, we really can go to the goals like discuss long-term preservation, etc. Let's try to sum it up. So first of all, data sovereignty. No vendor lock-in, no silos data. It's quite a good challenge. One user ID for all platforms. With one key, you go to any platform, you get your rental car, get money from ATM, whatever. That's how it should be. Then goes, of course, privacy enhancing technologies, and when you buy your bottle of beer, the shop doesn't know anything but that you are above 21. Electronic reputation, we didn't talk about it, but that's important also in cultural heritage. We get used to any platform to give likes, dislikes, discussions. It stays with platforms. We are not going to leave data to platforms, so we take it to us. If I get thousands of dislikes, cryptographically signed, it's quite easy to really keep my reputation. And reputation is a backbone of the society. Persistent ID, we discussed, very challenging thing. Intellectual property rights management for cultural heritage important, we definitely can address it. Data interoperability, we do understand that when I as a person, or I as a museum, I as a car has a pod, dozens of platforms write down data here. Definitely linked data is a help, but most probably on top of linked data we'll have to implement these LLM technologies, because sometimes you have to guess, not because it will be not now as dictionaries. But we can hopefully provide it. Long-term preservation discussed. Democracy, that's an interesting question. no government registers. We discussed with Dutch Cadastre, and in the end of discussion, they said, yeah, it seems that Dutch Cadastre doesn't need this database. We can spread this through the pods of the houses. It will be even better. It will be not 99% accuracy, it will be 100, because whenever municipality changes the address of the house, it will be changed there at the spot. So Dutch Cadastre probably will employ 5 people. So no register with Cadastre, KVK, or police, whatever. Well, we simplify the government, less bureaucracy. We may address the issue of fake news. We discussed with Sciences Po University in Paris. It's really could work this way. We can fight against autocrats. We discussed now with our Russian colleagues who really want to do something against Mr. Putin. You can organize electronic vote in Russia and really find how many people really support Mr. Putin. Very interesting case, because e-voting is part of the story. Electronic money, easy. Well, if you have the spots, if you have cryptography in place, we can have our ledgers. I can transfer money to you directly without bank account. Piece of cake. By the way, half of these advantages are based on security. By the way, it means that security is not a burden anymore, as usually perceived by engineering community. Security is enabler to absolutely fantastic technologies. That's what I like about this synergy. Now, what's next?
Can you go back for a second? I need to
Sure.
take a picture of this.
But we have dozens of other cases like that. But let's think really in the long term, and that's the fun of this project. So what's next? We have a wonderful working group led by Anil at IDSA called Personal Data Space. With all that said, that this solid idea, not solid itself, but solid idea of separating data, it's not about personal, it's also about Internet of Things. Organizations probably can change the name from personal to Web3 data space. Okay, let's try. But then we also may structure a little bit the work of this group. Before that we tried and different people came with different ideas discussed, but we might do it in structural way. Imagine we have a 2-hour session, and first we discuss the business case specifically for tourism. And then in the end we just discuss business case for the future meeting like real estate. So that the future meeting we just say, okay, next time we discuss another industry. And we start talking about agri, and then next time talking about agri. So probably after several sessions we really can explore different industries. And then we have, after half a year, this working group can really develop interesting approach, how we can change different industries with this approach, what kind of business case we can do. So it will be much more than you photographed right now. Well, and then probably we can start even today. Tourism, Igor.
Hello everyone, my name is Igor, and together with Alex, by the way, for the last 10 years we've developed the platform Easy Travel, which now we call Thematic Travel. It's the world's largest platform for audio guides, and we have more than 70,000 content providers ranged from museums and tourist operator to individuals. And talking about the whole travel market, by the way, it engaged millions of small media enterprises and thousands of global corporations, and altogether they contribute about 10% of GDP. So it's a huge market with involving millions and probably hundreds of millions of people, like agriculture, by the way. But today let's talk about simple case. Let's focus on the use case which any of you can fit yourself. Imagine you live in Paris and you know the city well, and you want to leverage it to earn a little extra money. So what can you do? You can provide excursions like a private guide, you can rent out your flat, you can occasionally drive a taxi, and for the rest of the time you want to share this car for car sharing services, and also you know hidden gems and secret places in the city, and you're an experienced photographer, so you can organize some photo sessions, and also you know how to cook French pastry, so you want to organize some workshops for cooking. So that's more or less, by the way, the set of experience I hope each of you provided for your friends, right? At least, yeah, it's common for everyone. But what if we talk about providing these services not for friends, but for business? Well, as a tourist guide, you have to provide, you have to publish your tour on several platforms, and in fact, not on one platform, but at least at 3, 4.
Compose it, it's probably at the bottom. Press the space button.
Okay, I'll do it manually. Yeah. So You have to list your tour on several global platforms like Viator, Get Your Guide, Klook, and on dozens of local platforms, because this market is very local oriented. In every country you have local platforms. Okay, and for every platform you have to make an account, to pass strong
Verification.
yeah, because you work with live persons, but you can handle it. It's okay. But then every of this platform have its own calendar, but that's not all. Every of them have its own messaging system to communicate with your client. Well, imagine the nightmare of managing calendar through different systems. If somebody order your guided tour, you have to immediately delist it from all other platforms. Wow, it's quite complicated. And it is extend when we talk about every activity you have to provide, about renting car, about renting your flat, providing master classes and so on. It's really a nightmare which take 100% of your time. Well, how could it look different? First of all, I wish to all this house disappear. I wish to publish my activities, describe them and publish my availability calendar just once, and let's platform compete to sell my availability slots. That's it, very easy. And I even do not care the names of these platforms. Let's say again, compete. It is very close what happened on airline tickets market. We will talk about later about that. So, in this case, I have just one calendar. In this case, of course, I use my own messaging application, and I don't care which application use my clients, whatever they want. And of course, I have my rating. Yeah, I forgot to mention it previously, but on every platform I today list my experiences, they have their own vision on my rating. Why? If people like my tours, so don't like, they provide their feedback, and I want to collect it. It belongs to me, and I decide with whom to share it. So that's the way that today I've described what is my pain as this private person and what is my dream. And I really believe that together we can figure out this schema, how we can resolve it. Thank you.
Well, you see, we had this question. Oh, we have these 4 use cases. All of them include people, some of them include Internet of Things, and they're very extreme and complicated. And as you see, at the moment, neither Solid nor IDS cannot address them totally. So probably together, through this approach of disconnecting data from platform, we can get them. Because actually, my feeling is this disconnection of data from platform is kind of silver bullet. We start from that, and then we get all the rest. For example, this electronic reputation comes automatically from it. So that's the solution which we would like to explore, and that's why we invite you. And we also would like to invite the people from Solid community to IDS and join us here. And I think it could be quite a great future for that. Questions, comments, critics, please.
I have some remarks. I think the approach is good. It's a bit tied to what the Mr. was saying, is that I think you have an intermediate step. I would disagree first with changing the name to Web3 data spaces. And I would also disagree on having this as it can be a vision, it can be one architecture, but as having it as the mandatory way of doing it.
Oh, that's not mandatory, it's just
I think you have an intermediate step where some innovative applications can be built using solids and this data thing like the linker one, okay? But then if we take the linker example, you need to connect to the banks, the notaries, this and that, right? And the banks and the notaries, they might say, okay, yeah, I'll play along a bit, I'll check, maybe I have some things, but they won't initially change their whole system to adapt to the solid one. They will initially share the data, store it, copy it, so that their current systems continue to work before there is maybe a mass adoption and maybe they change their systems. So you have an intermediate step where all of this is correct, but data is also stored and the consumer application, at least for several, and that allows to bridge the two worlds between what we have today and this future that might happen.
I totally agree. First of all, we definitely not provide anything mandatory or whatever. It's just an idea, and I would like the ideas community to explore further. For example, Sebastian is leading the development of protocol.
Mhm.
So with all these business cases, we may create kind of business level extra requirements to this protocol. So we just add there, for example, awareness. So if somebody change the port, which I'm as a platform interested, this awareness mechanism will bring to my database. So that, for example, that. So we definitely suggest to explore it, no mandatory.
It just
second-
means that if we, in the IDSA working group, if we are there to define how personal data is managed, that we need to have this hybrid state that I'm describing
Could be.
there, and not the full nuclear option that you described.
I fully agree with your second statement that we definitely need this transition period when two worlds live together, and this is absolutely fine. They can live together, especially taking into account that when we say that platforms will not have data, it's not so. Platforms will keep their data because they have to serve clients very fast. So we are not talking about taking data out of platforms. For example, Facebook, it will keep the data. But most probably we are talking about IDSA connector to be connected to the
Mhm.
back to the Facebook. It will synchronize the internal database with millions of the ports. So if something changed here, it changed here. If somebody changed here, it will be changed with the ports. So in this way, Facebook for some clients it will keep it inside Facebook, but some clients say, well, I want to keep it outside. These two worlds definitely can live together, which is very easy. And also taking linker case when banks will say, sorry guys, you play your game, but I prefer to keep it. It's fine. Then the port which Leon has will have a lot of information. Some of this will be original, so it will be original on the port. Some of them will be copied. But as long as we know what is copy, what is not copy, we can live with it. So any bank will check. Okay, that's copy from Kadas. Okay, if they want, they can go to Kadas and check it. So we also can address this issue. So it will be a smooth transition,
Yeah.
which is extremely important.
And so,
I can fully concur with that. I mean,
Yep.
that's also why we now still are obliged to make too many copies
Mhm.
compared to what we want. I mean, it's a difference between what we want to achieve
Yeah.
in the future state and what we can achieve right now.
Mhm.
And it has both technical reasons. I mean, every bank system in the world needs data internally to even operate. But that's not the biggest issue. I mean, technically, that can be changed, that you have external data that you use real time from an external system. But that takes time, money. But mostly it's about the very old idea, whose customer is it? Whose data is it? And that is a way of thinking.
yeah.
And not only banks, I mean, even smaller companies like notary offices are really small companies. And they also still think the data is mine. And nobody really thinks the data is of the consumer itself. And they are in charge of
It takes
it.
time, but what was a very important comment is that whatever we do here in the short term, it's very important that we have very clear long-term vision.
Exactly.
As long as it's clear, we can do here some things which look stupid, but as long as we know where it goes, it's fine because we need to approach it. It's important to make sure we don't go through bifurcation to another direction.
I'm not sure everybody needs to agree with this particular long-term vision. I'm going to give you some it can be one model, right?
Sure.
But give you some insights from experience in a sense, because we have the slide you are showing with a pod, the IDS, the consumer, the protocol, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
We have implemented it in the skills and education data space, where it's a lot
Okay.
of personal data as well, and it's the same topic. You have X job boards where you need to refill your CVs and so on, right? So it's the same thing. We didn't use a pot, we used Cozy Cloud, which is a French personal data store, but it's the same idea behind, okay? It's a personal data store. We interconnected about 40 of the skills platforms in France with this pod. We developed this kind of interconnection with the IDS and the consent and everything that you were showing, but it's open source, so you could check it out. The lesson I think that is important is that we have this portal people can come in, they have all these providers, they can use their skills, then share their skills to be matched with jobs across the different job boards, okay? And we had the pod, right? And you need to, at some point, configure your pod, right?
Yep.
So that data can be stored and
Yep.
shared there, okay?
Yep.
We had about 40,000 users, okay?
Oh, a lot.
10% use their pod, okay? The 10%, and most did not use it at all, and data was being shared directly between the applications without the pod. So we can have a vision on paper or an idea, but we don't know how it will look like in 10 years once these new services and new usages emerge.
I fully agree, and that's why it's important to roll it out through business methods. For example, in our case, we're also discussing with our investors again the education case, but there we would like to come to these big platforms which provide education with millions of users, and to populate these millions of, not thousands, millions of what, we are going to use the power of mobile operators. We have a very complicated case in mobile operators, which we already discussed with 2 mobile operators, one of them today, which they love, by the way. So we find a win-win situation, very complicated business case scenario, where mobile operators will help us to fill in millions of the spots which will go. So it's not about
If you
technical.
have millions of pod, sure it will work, right? But you are
it's-
saying when it will work, it will work. What I'm
But
saying
I-
is, how do we get there?
As I said, with power of other big powerful
Yeah,
things like
sure.
mobile operators. We can discuss it separate, but
Yeah,
because we
sure.
have questions. Oh, it was your first, yep, right.
Thank you very much.
Uh,
Yeah, my question was
sorry.
already partly addressed by the discussions before, but maybe as for some fundamental impulse for clarification. What stuck with me is like the combination of the vision of having giving the user total control over their data again, in combination with the e-reputation
How?
aspect. So the question would be how to deal with bad reputation that I have an interest in hiding. So in the tourism, in this case, it was briefly mentioned to also take negative feedback. But what about, for example, bad credits?
Cancel culture or bullying attacks, right?
Yes. So
We discuss it all.
Yeah.
It's a very good question, but again, it's difficult to get the whole system. But actually, whenever you give like or dislike, it's cryptographically signed. It means you are responsible for it. So, in order to calculate your reputation, will be different platforms like Michelin. They calculate reputation for restaurants. They say I can do it. But then Google will come. Unlike Michelin, I can identify the bullying attack. Wow, we're using artificial intelligence. We find those bad guys, and we put big black balls to their reputation. So whenever you participate in such attack, you know that probably 5 years later, somebody will get to the logs, find what you have done, and you'll get the feedback. Be careful with it. So that's a very interesting thing which we discussed, for example, with professor of ethics of some university in England. I mean, it's really interesting case.
Yeah, but what I mean more is like I received a bad credit score and want to buy a house now, and I
Yeah.
want to hide that fact.
Hide it. It's up to you.
No.
No.
There's a question. No. It's a wrong understanding. There's a question: can I hide only bad feedback? No, you can't.
I'm sorry, no. You can hide. Either you hide it all.
You have an option. Either you hide all your reputation, and people understand why. Why? So probably I don't
What
know.
is interesting is most of the time, the more you check, the worse your credit score gets. In most systems. And it's just a matter of, I apply multiple times. It's not that I was rejected. I wasn't even really interpreted. I've just applied at many banks. I know, for instance, in the States and also in the UK, you don't apply for many mortgages. Because the more you apply, the worse your credit score gets. Here in the Netherlands,
Crazy.
but here in the Netherlands it's different. We have financial independent advisors who actually request a mortgage at every lender at once. And you don't get a worse credit score because of that. So it also has to do with the fact, how do they deal with that data? But you can't hide it because it is who you are, and if you had a bad credit score once, okay, it's part of you. But if you have resolved it, it should also be part of you.
But it's very interesting ethical game and ethical questions. That's why with universities we cooperate. We really try to get the professors in ethics, because we came to the Yuval Harari raised this issue. It seems that we as mankind, we reach the level of the god. Sometimes we call this reputation e-karma, because that reflects the situation. So we are facing very serious questions here.
So I have a couple of comments, and one did not want to address this topic of e-karma and e-money, but I think I have to. So starting first, I understand your approach, but I wouldn't say this is the new version of IDS. It's a configuration of what we do already, because we do not link data, for example, but because we can't. Not everyone is using linked data at the moment, but we will mandate this strongly. You should use that, and you can build most of the things you mentioned already today, including with the use of IRIs, that you can reference something for 500 years as long as you would like to, depending on where you
Thank you for coming, because we spoke today with Lars, we have to align our storytelling.
I also was listening to you. This is a configuration. Likewise, when you say so, the data may only be stored in my pod, or however you name the system. This is just a policy. The policy that you apply to your system. Of course, you may use my data, but you're not allowed to copy it, only to copy this from this one. That's just a configuration policy. So, that's why I say in general, I'm in favor of what you're explaining, but that is not really something completely new. It's applying the things that are behind IDS since the beginning of what we're implementing.
Then it's even better.
And but the problem is, and this is what we discuss here, so what is the implication of that? Because, of course, this is a good way forward. You see, you've got a lot of friends that say, well, that's right, we have to do that, we have to own our own data, that's right, that's what we want to have. That's right, but we have some issues with that. We address one thing with the systems itself, and I mean, it's easy to talk to the guys from Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg swims in money, I suppose. I don't know him. But if you consider banking systems, insurance systems, they are pretty old systems. They will not be changed because there is not money inside and not the need really to change a whole system. Just imagine an insurance company just breaking down the old legacy systems. You know, legacy systems, those are the guys with the beards. But because you don't find developers that can't maintain them anymore, they have to rebuild such systems to do something like visiting. They won't do. And if they have to do, someone has to pay it. And that's the second question. Who is going to pay for that? Because for the time being, well, I use Gmail. So, and I don't pay for Gmail, that's great. I know that they're misusing my data, but I have a free Gmail account. So, am I really willing, so I have also another email address that I pay for. That's another thing. Is everyone really willing to pay for all those services, what we get from the platforms for free at the moment? So, this is what we discussed before. So, we need the time to change things. I think this is not a radical change in technology. What we have to do is to develop our industries, our services, to develop our society. And coming back to the e-commerce discussion, there is one good system that you can learn from, because this is in China, the social credit system. This is exactly what you're implementing. And a couple of years ago, we discussed this in Europe and said, oh no, we will not implement a social credit system. I don't want to have this. That's what you've been asking for. I don't want to be part of the social credit system. But ask the Chinese, and I'm not judging on them. They love it. They want to do that, they want to have it, and they want to live in that basis. Not everyone, but this is at least what I mean. So this is something like really a societal change, and this is coming also back to the point, so what is the right ethics, what is the right behavior, how do we develop as a society in the end, and how do we want to deal with data? That is a question that you're asking. So we can discuss a lot of technologies. You know, I love technologies, I can discuss this for hours, but the discussion that we're having here is not about technology. This is about our society and how we want to develop our society, like in Japan with the Society 5.0 and so on. This is a point that we have to take here.
Thank you. Very good comments. With first one, I totally agree. We need to align our language. We don't know history of ideas, how it works, so we need to help. And we agreed with Lars that probably I will come to you in a couple of weeks to Dortmund and we talk about the language. Totally agree. Second question about the these legacy systems in the banks. My guess, just guess, is that if banks like ING or whatever old guys will not adjust in time, somebody else will do it.
Yes, but this is another discussion. So I like this cultural heritage case much more, because this makes sense to me. And I'm not deep in cultural heritage, but I can follow this line of argumentation. Why there is a goodwill in the participants and the idea to put money inside and to change things, because they really have a clear benefit. I don't see it in banking, for example.
I agree that we definitely should start from markets like that. It's a kind of sandbox for us. And your last question was about
Chinese karma.
Chinese karma. We definitely started this case. I was born in Soviet Union. I know how it works. So I love Chinese system because if you have a low karma, you go to prison automatically. Simplifies a lot of things. And so actually the point is, you know, the point is that we already collect these likes and dislikes everywhere. The only question is, do we want government to have it like in China or Russia now? Do we want corporations to have it like Mr. Zuckerberg, or do we want to keep it ourselves? There is no fourth option.
So Mr. Zuckerberg doesn't fear the opponents in this case. I'm far more afraid of things like Cambridge Analytica, who is using likes and dislikes to influence our policymakers. And even
But that happens when government like in China or corporations like Facebook have our likes, but if I keep likes here at my port, I decide, probably I will sell it to Cambridge Analytica anonymously, it's fine, I get money for it, but it will be my decision. But it's definitely different from Chinese case. And Chinese case, trust me, I love very much, I studied very well, and I'm extremely afraid of it. And in general, this karma, it just makes me shaking because it's very dangerous. We really get to the things that God itself can only do. It's very dangerous. That's why it's important to put it in the wide discussion and discuss it openly. Otherwise, we get in trouble. So that's more or less it.
Can I add one thing on the banking thing? Thank you. I totally agree. Heritage could be applause
Something
to
sweet,
start.
sweet.
No! Flowers.
Yet I agree also with the person in front here. Before we get there, we should go into steps, and I already mentioned we need to go in small steps, and the banking systems need to retain data and copy data, even though we don't like it. But there's one thing that makes them do change. They're legacy systems, and they're really old. I mean, whoever is still into COBOL has a bright future at banks. Exactly.
Insurances.
But those old systems cannot cope with the current legislation from Europe. The GDPR is one of the most important things that they are also faced with. And I don't know if you know, at least from the Netherlands, the latest fines that have been given to banks, because that's the tier one that the governmental agencies are currently investigating. And the fines are in the hundreds of millions euros. And the most the person in the bank with the most power is not the CEO. It's the CFRO, the Chief Finance and Risk Officer. Because compliance is the license to operate for a bank. No compliance, no license to operate. Stop business. That's exactly what is hanging over them.
Yes, exactly. And so
and
guess what? They're not deciding to change their systems. They are deciding to adjust compliance. What compliance means. This is
Yeah,
what
so
is happening,
70% of their current budgets go into projects that have to do with compliance. If we try to come in, and I know, I've been there for 25 years in that industry, in the mortgage market industry, so I know banks. And they all say, okay, no time for projects, no money for projects because we have to be compliant. Okay, so then let's not change their current system, because they can't change their current system. They can't comply with their current systems and have an interaction with their clients in a proper way where the right compliance with consent on their data is given. That's also why as Linker we do not aim to replace any banking system. I'm saying I'm not a transaction platform. I'm only an infomediation platform. I infomediate between you and the outside world.
And
your
I'm
data?
sorry to...
Yeah, I know. Maybe we should continue this.
Otherwise we should have taken another day, but this is something for next time.
Do you mean it will be the short day? Thank you.